Good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Tangent here on YouTube. We're coming to you. This is episode 45, I think. 45, and it's for January 2nd in the fantastic year of 2020. We're here. We're ready to go. I'm Greg. That's Brooks, and this is our kind of recap of the decade. We still can't milk that for enough, so we'll do it for one more week, one more show. We did last week, last Thursday, right after Christmas, we did the kind of the best games of 2019.
And then we also kind of covered some stuff that's coming out this year that we're looking forward to.
Yep, the future of 2020, which we're now in. And now we're going to look way back into the past when the dinosaurs roamed, and we'll look at 2010 to 2019, what our favorite games were.
I looked at a lot of games for this.
Yeah. So. Welcome, Fixstar. Yeah, no, it was something that we decided to look at, and we talked about, last Friday or Monday?
I forget when we'd been kind of kicking around this idea for a week or so.
Mm-hmm. And we wanted to sit there and just talk about and showcase some of the games that we thought were our favorites. I don't think they're really the industry. It's not necessary. Happy New Year to you as well, Fixstar. It's good to see you back here in 2020. Hope that you're well. Hope that you had a good time for your celebration. Oh, you made another game. Awesome. You had some time on your hand. What's this one like? But for basically 2010 to 2019, this is about the time when I started to get into. Well, we both kind of did a podcast back in 2010. That's when we started that. Mm-hmm. Then that kind of fell away, and then I was doing some stuff on YouTube and different things, and then started Twitch around 2013, 2012.
Right.
I guess Twitch right when it started. So it was just kind of like playing a lot of different games, and these may not be the industry favorites, but I think a lot of them are.
There's certainly some that are. Yeah, I think there's a little deviation in each list.
Yeah, I think there is. So do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. We can grab that if you want to throw. Yep, right there.
That one right there?
Yep.
Okay.
So back in 2010, I had essentially a handful of games. There was Mass Effect was on there, Skate was on there, Alan Wake was on there. I ultimately threw this one. This game is still something that resonates with me. It was an Xbox exclusive at the time. It's called Splinter Cell Conviction. It was by far absolutely not the most critically acclaimed game that year, but anyone that knows me personally knows one of my favorite television shows all time is 24, and this is the closest anyone has ever gotten to 24 the game.
Yeah.
Right. Just sort of in your motivations, the brutality, the setting of Washington, D.C.
I was going to say, that kind of the context of the whole game is really around covert operations, single man infiltration into specific scenarios within the government, shadow government.
Yeah, it starts off with Sam having found out that he's been lied to and his daughter is in fact alive after been carrying the guilt that he was responsible for her death. It told the story in a really interesting way where it would project onto the wall.
Yeah, I like that. Ubisoft got a lot of use out of that. They were doing that in a lot of different games. Division did that as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. It also had a really fun system where instead of turning this into a pure stealth game, they came up with this concept of mark and execute.
Yeah.
So when you were invisible, all the color would drain from the world, right?
Yeah.
When you were in stealth.
And it would focus in on the one character that you were after.
Yeah, and then what you could do is you would mark your targets, and then you would hit a button where you would execute a sequence, and you would take everything down. So instead of feeling like you were constantly stealthing, it was this hyper-aggressive form of stealth that to this day, I still want them to make another one of these.
That was in the Splinter Cell series, that was Tom Clancy.
Yep.
If nobody knew that. And they haven't done really the Tom Clancy tag on it. Well, I guess they still use that for the Division.
Yeah, they did. There was a sequel to this game called The Blacklist,
Yeah.
but it didn't borrow any of the concepts. It turned back more into a pure stealth Splinter Cell game, where this was more of like
It was a little more aggressive.
It was a little more of like, I guess I'll call it a political thriller.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you go put the story trailer for this game and a story trailer for like 24 or Homeland, it's like the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was a pretty good franchise, and really we haven't seen a lot from Splinter Cell since 2013.
if they want to, if they want to come back, I'm ready. I really like the franchise,
Yeah.
and I know that they probably started to feel like we're making yet another stealth game.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we're getting to a point where I won't be surprised if here in the next
Well,
year.
really, Assassin's Creed picked up kind of where Splinter Cell, like they
Sure.
kind of shifted and like
Sure.
went away, right?
Sure, yeah. And then the Division games cover some of this mercenary conspiracy type of
I'm
stuff.
surprised they haven't put Sam Fisher into that, like just as a character.
There's
kind
been
of
that.
thing.
Well, he made an appearance in Wildlands. It was really
Oh, see, I didn't even know
it was
that.
really bizarre the way that they sort of shoehorned it in. And then they even have
Interesting. I didn't know that.
They even have him then turning around and making reference to Snake as if they're all a
Metal
part.
Gear?
Yeah. Yeah, right. So
I never knew that.
and I'm generally okay. The franchise has been quiet for a while, so
Yeah.
I feel like in the near future, I won't be surprised whether they do something like they could do something with VR that might be kind of cool,
Yeah.
right? Bring him into some other franchise. We'll see.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with that whole, with all of Splinter Cell, especially that game. We both played that game, really enjoyed it. So
Oh, this was even, sorry, and one more thought about
Yeah.
it is I even got to the point where I was buying there was a cell phone version of Splinter Cell Conviction.
Yes. Yep.
And each carrier, AT&T, T-Mobile, at the time Singular, and Verizon,
Had
if you bought the game on their platform, you got a gun that was exclusive that you could pull into the game. So I was like $40 into like Splinter Cell.
on dumb phone games.
I own every single piece of content for that game possible.
That's awesome.
I have the fanciest edition. I have the pre-order bonuses. I have every carrier weapon.
No kidding.
Like that's how into this game I was.
I did that on Chaos Theory. I like that one.
I was into this game for probably $150 by the end of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, before that was really a common
Right.
thing. Holy cow. I think one that I thought about, this was early 2010, and this kind of, it's not the first in the series, very similar to Splinter Cell. It wasn't the last in the series or the first in the series, but this was the last in the series. Skate 3, and I don't know if anybody really played a lot currently that plays a lot of skating games, but back in the day, they were big. Tony Hawk was massive for Activision, and Skate was coming along for EA, and they were just doing really well. And Skate really surpassed anything Tony Hawk was trying to do. Skate was more real world, as far as you can get to real world, or as close as you can get to real world.
It was a physics-based skateboarding game.
Physics-based, not all these crazy tricks and spinning and all that stuff, and trying to, listen to the music. Although there was really good music in all skating games, they all had something very similar. And there was Shaun White's skateboarding. There was, Skate 3, 1 through 3. There was Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk had a couple variations.
Square had some kind of skateboarding game. I forget. Or no, Konami had a skateboarding game. They all had tons of skateboarding games, and everybody was trying to get a piece of the action. But really, I think the Skate franchise is probably the best and most well-known game out there. And it was really the end of the heyday for the roller skate.
Is this actually you playing right now?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I stole the footage.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the game anymore. No, I have the game. I have them all, but on PS3, and I didn't have time to do it. But yeah, there was some pretty ridiculous downhill. That's what you're watching here. Was just one of the areas you could go, and you could see somebody downhill, or you could play downhill kind of skateboarding.
Right.
But it was an open world, so you could go anywhere, and you could take the subway. And you could get online with your friends and play whatever you wanted.
Because couldn't you, like, if I recall this, I played a tremendous amount of these, you could, like, get off your skateboard and, like, walk places.
You could go wherever you wanted, yeah.
Right.
It was free roam. It was open world.
It had the cool thing where your tricks were done, like, you would do the feet on the board with the control stick.
So with the actual thumbsticks.
Yeah, which was really unique.
Yeah, there's a few games that have come out now. They're on Steam. And there's two. There's Skate XL, and then there's
like that Project Session.
That
are both spiritually close to
They're
this.
closest to this than they are like the Tony Hawk world.
Yeah.
So, but I missed these. This was fun. This, like I said, was early 2010. I think it came out in May in the U.S. And this was the last one of the franchise. But man, they had done amazing stuff with it. Like, it was connected. It was online. You could skate with whoever. It was a full-blown experience.
Yeah.
It brought you together as close as you could get to skateboarding without breaking an ankle or skidding up your knees. It was pretty much something that you could play around with your friends and really enjoy.
Yeah.
So I kind of miss these. I wish they'd bring them back.
Yeah, unfortunately, the team that built these was inside of EA, and they called themselves EA Black Box.
Yep.
Which my understanding is that has been dissolved at this point. But one thing that's always funny to see is anytime if you go to like EA's Instagram page and you go see, because they're always showing off their latest and they're hyping it up, and the comments are like Skate 4 question mark, Skate 4 question mark, Skate 4 question mark.
Yeah, everybody wants it. It's something that everybody enjoyed, and I would love to see it happen again. It's a fun game. But that, I digress, is my first one of the 10. So let's see. We're going to jump out of here. There it is. Which do you want to showcase next? Brooks kind of went down. I don't know. You did the years. So we'll go to 2011.
There's a couple years where there's a shared game or more than one.
Yeah.
But I tried to. I pieced this together in a bunch of ways, and I tried to kind of pick the game I remember most from that year. Yeah. So whether these are truly my favorite or not, this is a game that
it really stuck with you.
That I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but for a while, the only type of games I played were PC MMOs. I played like FF11, WoW, Rift, Terra, the Old Republic. Yeah. Like, I played these for sport. Like, this was like progression rating.
It was a big thing.
I was playing 40, 50 hours a week. This is probably the game I consider myself this is the game I think I'm the best at. Out of any game I've ever played, I'm highly confident that, like,
in full disclosure, this is a sister company of us.
Funny enough, right? After the fact,
many years, not when you were playing it, but like currently, the company that owns both WildTangent and Tryon, Gamigo, that's the mothership, and we're sister companies.
Our PvP guild was probably second or third best in the game. Like, no joke about this.
Yeah, you said you guys really ran like the online or the real money market.
Oh, this was my first taste of, like, I rated in some other games previously. This was the first time that, like, I was a part of something where we were pushing stuff like pretty early.
You had more power than the devs had power in comparison to the economy.
We were rolling into the town centers, like the big kingdoms of the game, and we were killing like the kings. And these were supposed to be unkillable, right? These were like, the guards were level like 99, and we would come up with ways to do this.
That is funny.
The one thing I most remember...
This is a free game, I think, still. Now, Kickstarter was asking him. Yeah. Never seen the game, but I think this is a free game available. You can just download.
Yeah. We ran... The thing I probably remember most about this is, like, we were kind of a PvP-focused guild. So we raided purely to just get the weapons and then go take them and go trounce on other players, right? So not only was PvP, we had kind of turned into, like, this giant arms race where, like, guilds were leaving our servers. So we would hop around. But it was the first MMO I'd played where they had a concept of open world raiding, which was, like, you could see other guilds summon like raid level content,
Oh,
and you
okay.
could go like mess with them.
Get involved in that.
And you
Okay.
would have 2 or 3 open world raids happening at once. It was some of the most fun I've ever had playing an MMO.
That's awesome.
It is still to this day my favorite one. Yeah.
Do you ever play it? Did you ever go back to it? Or no?
I didn't. I got to a point with MMOs where once I kind of started at WildTangent here, 9 years ago or whatever, I had to make this decision where I couldn't do WildTangent full time, and then I just
dedicate that kind of time.
Yeah, when I was, temporarily laid off or whatever, and I could play, 60 hours a week, like, it was fine. But I also really burnt myself out on playing them so hard for so long.
Sure.
So.
Well, my next one is one from Valve.
We both had this on our
list.
list.
It's funny enough, we both thought about this game. Portal 2. So Portal 2 did a couple things. They basically built onto a great platform, which was Portal 1.
Yeah.
The original Portal had the ability to shoot these different weapons into the walls, and you would be able to cross over or pass through them no matter where they were. Like, you would go in one that was over here on the right side, and you would come out if you shot one into the ceiling from the ceiling. And it was a puzzle game, and it was basically built to kind of traverse these arenas or these test zones, test chambers, where essentially a robot, GLaDOS, was watching you, and it was grading you, and really, that was, I don't want to give too much away if you've never played them, because they're great games, and anybody should go back and check these out, because they were more fun to kind of see the full story as you progress through the game.
Yep.
Same thing happened in number 2, but they offered co-op. They did that. That was the second thing that was unique, is that you could play with a friend. The third thing that they did was unique was Valve, after many years of Gabe Newell complaining and making fun of PlayStation and the console,
Right.
they ended up partnering together.
I remember
for
this.
PS3, so that the PS3 could play. You could play this game with somebody on PC,
Right.
on Steam.
So that's how you and I played, because I played on a PlayStation, and I think you played on a PC.
I did, yep.
Yeah.
I had it on PC because Howie played on the PlayStation when we played.
Right.
And you could play co-op together. You could do some specific co-op challenges. I think there were specific. You could do the campaign or these challenges.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic experience the whole way through. It's really good. It's a solid storyline. It doesn't have to be a huge story, but the story that they do give you is just really top notch. I mean, they did a great job. This is on par with like Half-Life in the way they developed it.
They took a concept. So this is a weird like local thing. Portal was spawned out of this game called The Bacular Drop, which was this student project from DigiPen, which is a local school it's
based in Redmond.
That's kind of tangentially connected to Nintendo Software Tech. So Valve kind of saw this concept and was like, okay, like, what if you took this and did it in like a 3D space, which was crazy. And then in the sequel, they upped the ante and they're like, let's have multiple people playing in this space. And it was like, it is still to this day, you can turn this on and you can have fun.
Oh yeah, and this is April 2011, I think, is when this came out. Yeah. And people, still love this game and play it today. It was unique. I mean, having the PS3 connectivity was very unique at the time because nobody was trying to do console to PC crossplay.
Yeah, right.
So,
and you really even had to have a combination of a platform holder in both spaces working together, which is becoming more common these days, but back then that was like unheard of.
It was unheard of back then. Plus, they gave you the PC version for free. All you had to do was create a Steam name. Steam username. Yep. That's the only thing you had to do, and then you got the PC version for free when you bought the PS3.
There's always been a fun rumor that another one of these might pop its head out, and I'm game. I'd be super,
if they ever did it, I think they would do fine.
Yeah.
It was super fun. I enjoyed.
I've wondered if
Some emergency testing may
Could you do
require
it in
prolonged
VR?
interaction
Like
with
Portal
local
in
military
VR?
I think it could easily.
Right. That's-
I think it's almost like we could do it, but that's just something simple now.
Right.
It needs to be like back in the day. This really how you solved the puzzles. It really made people think.
Yeah.
It wasn't the standard way of doing puzzle solving games or
Yeah.
first person games.
Right.
So I think they would want, if it was going to be in VR, I think they would want something, just as unique to blow people's minds. Like,
Right.
think about it this way. And there's still stuff out there.
Right.
I thought that was cool. So that was my second pick of the decade.
This was the first game that you and I had both put on our list,
Yeah.
and then I went and grabbed a different one. So
I did that again. So let's see. What...
mine are just ordered correctly,
yeah,
so you
we're
can
going
just
to go
grab
to
the...
2012 for you.
Yep.
Pull that up.
So I actively debated. There were 3 games this year that I loved. One of them was Dishonored, the other one was Borderlands 2, and the third one was Max Payne. And I ended up choosing this one because this is one of the first games I remember seeing where your gameplay sequences and the cutscenes all kind of merged together. There wasn't really a load in this game.
Right.
You were constantly weaving in and out. They had these really cool split frames.
Yep. And as they traveled like this, the game was loading in the background.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
Right. Max Payne had been dormant for a little while, and Max Payne was originally a Remedy game that was published
that
by.
was what, 96?
incorporating voiceover and
97?
flashbacks to build
Gosh,
a
I don't even
complex,
remember.
layered
Something like that, and then Max Payne 2
Comic
came out
panel
shortly
presentation
after
from
that.
Max Payne
Yeah.
3.
It was like
Uh-huh.
before the end of the
Developed a
decade
custom
there.
panel generator
Yeah.
And then it
dynamically
sat around for like
incorporates
10 years.
in-game
Nobody
footage
did anything
in
with
real
it.
time.
Yeah. So this was
AAA.
actually developed by
To keep the player
Rockstar, unlike
in
the
the
other
game
2,
world
which were
and
developed by
in Max's
Remedy and I believe
consciousness at the
published by
same time.
Rockstar. This shows Max
The game
in
transitions
much
from
later in his
gameplay
life.
cutscenes, using a range
no longer
of
a cop.
editing techniques.
Yep.
Without
Still got some of
showing the
Max's
loading
old
screen.
problems, like the drinking and the drugs and
Yeah,
whatnot.
I
But
almost equate Max to Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Each
as he got
environment in Max
more
Payne
into
3
it.
is
He
highly detailed and
never
based on
wanted to be in it,
real-world
but then
research while being interactive.
he's really good at what he does.
right, yeah.
Right.
During
Right.
gunplay.
And this is also, in a way, not to sound like a broken record, the story of Max and the story of Jack Bauer from 24 are not dissimilar. They're kind of the same thing. They always try to get out of the game. Somehow they get pulled back in. Their unique talents are always called upon for one reason or the other, and both of their families end up in prison.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of the...
Like nobody's ever safe.
Right. So this was also when Rockstar really started to
During quieter moments,
blur
Max can
all of their
explore the
tech
environment
together,
to learn more about
where
his
in the
predicament.
past they would have the facial animation from tennis
The
and the
same level
driving
of detail
from
extends to the
Midnight
weapon
Club and
animation,
the shooting from,
where all
you
of
know,
Max's
They were always doing
animations
testing
are
in different
contextual
games that they were
and
putting
based
out,
on
and
the
then it was
specific
culminating
weapon
in
type.
like Grand Theft Auto.
So yeah,
Deployment.
so you can
With
see that like the
stunning
combat in
cinematic
this game
presentation
and the
designed to
combat in the
complement
next
the finely
GTA
tuned
are
gunplay
very
and
similar.
Oh
narrative.
yeah, almost
Right.
identical.
Max Payne
So-
3 offers
Hell, a lot of the
an
character models are
incredibly
almost
engaging
identical
Yes.
in
experience
this.
Yeah.
that
From
looks
GTA
almost as
5.
good
Yeah.
as it
At
feels.
least.
It's a very linear game. It's a tremendous amount of fun. This is another one of those. Max has been dormant. If you want to
Yeah.
bring him back, maybe you let Remedy go take another stab after their brilliance of control.
Oh
Right.
yeah, no, that would be interesting to see them
Yeah.
pick this back up. I mean, Max Payne was the character model was built off of the president of Remedy or the founder of Remedy,
Sam Lake.
Sam
yeah.
Lake.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's who he
Yeah.
looks like. If you look at original Max and Max 2,
Yes.
that's him.
Right. Yeah.
And Max 2 came out in 2003, so I didn't think it was actually that late. So it was less than a decade, but it was still like 7 years.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
now I guess when did Max Payne come out then? 2012. So it was actually almost 9 years
So-
between them.
so-
It's a long time.
I kind of fought a little bit with this or Borderlands.
Yeah.
And I went back and forth and ultimately I played more Borderlands that year
Yeah.
because it was multiplayer. But when I go back and I say like, man, what came out that year that was trying to do something just really, really high end. Borderlands was
Yeah.
like, we're looting stuff from the ground again, and we've made a bunch of
They just
big
keep kinda going
improvements
back to the well,
to
yeah.
the system. Yeah.
So, my third game of the decade is Batman Arkham Asylum. This was probably about mid 2010, like May of 2010.
I suspected this was going to make your
Rockstar,
Rocksteady.
sorry, yeah, we were just talking about Rockstar. Rocksteady had brought a unique fighting, almost like rhythm fighting mechanic into the game, where you're basically on the timing of when your enemies are throwing punches, and you can block them or you can counter them. There's many different ways you can take them down. There's different weapons that you're using. I mean, they really, when they brought in Batman as the universe, they brought everything into it. It's probably the best superhero game ever made, like the Batman franchise.
Sure.
They did phenomenal, and this is not the only one they did. There was Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. There's Arkham
Knight. Yep.
And there's Arkham
Origins.
Yeah.
And then there's,
which took you back a little bit.
And then there's this
before.
rumored thing that's been floating around the internet for, I don't know, a good 2 years now.
Yeah,
Right.
and, obviously, this game was the first of that kind of style. They went on to make this even for like Lord of the Rings. They used some of the tech in that.
Mm-hmm.
I even believe Max Payne, the last Max Payne that was made, used some of the tech as well, because it's more of the fighting style. But it's a fantastic franchise. They have a ton of hidden stuff here. You'd hear like Poison Ivy talking about her time. And
They had your favorite characters.
Yeah, they
they
had
gave
all
you a
the
reason
characters.
that everybody was there.
They had them.
Right.
That's not all of the characters. They had a majority of the characters. All of the characters eventually showed up in all the different Arkham series.
Yeah.
And now even the Arkham Batmans are, I believe, part of like the lore,
Okay.
part of the whole like,
Okay.
chain of it. And there's a couple different arcade racing games where they even have like the Batmobile that's in Arkham Asylum or Arkham series is included along with like the original Batmobile, the Batmobile from the movies, the Batmobile from,
Okay.
I forget all the other Batmans there are. There's the Batman anime,
Right.
I think, as well. So there's like the Arkham franchise is now even within the lore itself.
I always felt like these games
Or
had
canon,
I always
too.
felt like they had a little bit of Splinter Cell in them.
They had a little
little
bit,
bit
yeah,
of
for the
that.
stealth and all
Yeah,
that, and you were
right.
using like different things, different tools to kind of peer through a wall or
Right.
see where an enemy is,
Right.
or tag an enemy, or hit him with the batarang, or all
I-
sorts of stuff.
I
yeah.
remember hearing about this game, and someone was like, they made a good Batman game, and Batman games had been terrible.
Yeah, they were really rough on the Super Nintendo, and
Yeah.
then you got into the PS1 days and the PS2, and they were really, really crappy
Right. So
in most cases.
So when this came out, Batman fans were like, "Great, let's go screw it up again." So much to everyone's amusement,
surprise.
everybody was like, "Wait, you actually nailed a Batman game? Finally, like somebody did it."
They did
Right.
a great job with this. This is one of my favorite action games.
This game probably changed the future of Rocksteady. I would
I
have
think
to
so.
venture a guess. Yeah.
I would think it set them on a path of like, hey, we can work on whatever we want.
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Yeah. Before that, they may not have had that kind of freedom, but they sure did at the end. And Warner Brothers has done well with this. I mean, obviously,
Definitely.
that's
Yeah.
their IP, but like, they were the publisher in the series, and they have a winner here. I mean, there hasn't been much for Aquaman or Superman games or anything. Some of the worst games, actually one of the worst games ever, that people all tend to agree on is Superman N64.
Right.
So they had a really hard time getting a Warner Brothers or DC franchise off the ground in gaming.
The only other comic book franchise that I think made a game even close to this was Insomniac did that Spider-Man game recently, which is also
Yes.
pretty high quality. But,
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the stuff that Insomniac's done.
But it's like I almost wonder if Insomniac would have been given that chance had this not been proven that you could have some games that were maybe not amazing.
Yeah, I
or
guess
whatever.
it all depends on if Sony really wanted to maximize everything.
Well,
they
sure,
had,
yeah,
know,
sure.
Who knows? But yeah, that was my third pick of the decade there. Let's see. Brooks has 2013 now. I think we're going into,
Yeah.
and this makes sense.
Yeah. And this might be something of a controversial pick because this was the year that GTA 5 came out. And GTA 5 was really something else, but I picked BioShock Infinite. And there's a fun story about how I even fell into the BioShock franchise, because that was, in a way, kind of how you and I sort of became friends at real. You had played the first BioShock game.
The original one in 2009 or 8 or when it came out.
And you were like, have you played this game? And I was like, no. And you're looking at me, you're like, oh, dude. And you, at this point, knew about the twist and knew about everything that they were building. And I was kind of like, okay. So I had gotten my paws on a 360. And I still remember I was like, okay. I got into the room with the graph on the wall and the would you kindly and that whole thing. And then, so I kind of fell in love with the first BioShock game, which is made by a team that Ken Levine ran. And then BioShock 2 came out, and I played it, but it just didn't have the same. I wasn't as excited about.
Yeah, we did
2.
a very in-depth.
Yeah, very.
Discussion. It was like a 3-hour podcast discussion about every aspect of the BioShock 2 game, and kind of we went through spoilers and all that, and it was lengthy, and we talked that one to death. And there was a big difference, as you pointed out, to the original BioShock to BioShock 2.
Yeah,
and it wasn't a great thing.
So
it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah. So then when they announced this one, they kind of hooked it with, hey, the guys that made BioShock 1 are going to come back, and they're going to make a true successor to the whole thing. And the game is really fun. It takes you to some places that you might remember.
Yep.
Whereas BioShock 1 had a lot to do with fundamental economic views. Mm-hmm. This had more to do with an alternative version of American history, which was a really unique take. The world was really cool. The way that the story was told, with who you really are and how you're connected to Elizabeth and the war, and it was just, I had a lot of fun. The end of the game, I still remember, because at this point we were working at WildTangent. Yeah. We were all like, okay, so can anybody explain what happens without a graph? Right? Because the end of the game is nuts. So
it was a great game, and again, a huge franchise, and did extremely well. And to try and recap it in a short kind of time is tough, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely a little bit of a you have to play it yourself to really fully comprehend or understand. My next game actually came from an indie developer back in 2013, and this is from Mossmouth. This is Spelunky. This was the first game that I got into the roguelike platformer world. This game, there was a streamer who was with Justin TV prior to turning into Twitch, which his name's Jason Love. He's Man vs. Game.
Okay.
He was playing and got really super into the Spelunky franchise, game itself. It's really just one single game, and love the complete brutality of the game in terms of when you die, you start all the way over again.
Yep.
Every time. It's permadeath. You start the game brand new. So
this is before that concept was kind of a little more widely accepted.
Right? There was a couple of them, and this game was really doing it. There was Risk of Rain that came out shortly thereafter, and they were really pushing the boundary of game difficulty was a factor, but it was also the fact that when you died, you were done, right? The game started you all the way back at the beginning. You didn't keep the upgrades and things like that. So it was a massive change to playing platformers.
You kept the knowledge that you previously had learned from. That was kind of your finger quotes reward, if you want to put it one way.
Yeah. And other developers did things differently, but Spelunky was one that just really caught me off guard, and it's available for all platforms, but it really did a good job, and it really showcased how low, a smaller budget can get you some big wins, and they were early on, and they did extremely well, so.
Well, smaller budget also lets you kind of experiment with things without having to back
Right.
it with, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars,
exactly
right?
it.
So, what did these guys do next?
I think they've been working on like a Spelunky 2.
Interesting. Okay.
I think they might have done another game, UFO something.
Okay.
So, don't know much about it. I don't know if they've ever finished it, but I thought they were going to be making Spelunky 2, but I don't know. I haven't heard much from them.
Right.
But Spelunky did extremely well, and it's quite a fun game. And it's got that risk and versus reward kind of scenario. Like, how far can you push your luck before you got to kind of go, okay, I'm going to try to, salvage my game here.
Right.
Not Dark Souls at that point, but getting close to it.
Not quite, but yeah.
Not quite yet. All right, let's see. Let's get your fourth pick up here.
And so this year, I have 2 games. So the first game is Destiny, which I've played. Last I looked, time wasted on Destiny, I think it's 2,500 hours.
Oh, wow.
It's this was in concept. I sold this game to basically any person that would listen to me talk, and I kind of gave everybody a promise of this was gonna be Halo meets World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
That's so. If we had done a best of 2000 to 2009, Bungie's stamp would be all over it for me. I've played so much LAN Halo that it's disgusting. Right. So when they kind of got out of having to make Halo games, that was a gentleman by the name of Luke Smith kind of got involved with getting Bungie into the concept of raid design.
Yeah.
So I took kind of the world that I had left behind, which was playing MMOs, and this game kind of was this bridge to both sides.
Right.
You didn't have to commit the same level of time you would to play WoW, but the concept of raiding on consoles was not really a thing yet.
Yeah, they were bringing something that was quite foreign to the console players, but really familiar to the PC world.
Yeah, right. So, when I got this game, I never would have expected that I played this for. I mean, I still play this game to this day.
Oh,
maybe not as much, but I have made internet friends that I later met in real life.
Yep.
I have met families, like family members of other people through this game in real life. Like, so this is something that I never would have guessed a little online shooter turned into what it was for me.
Yeah. No, it is a unique game.
Yeah.
It did well.
It
does well.
It's been interesting to watch it evolve over time because it has not always been received perfectly, but
Yeah. Well, nothing ever is.
but it would have been hard for me to make this list because after this game came out, I'm confident I have played every single looter that has come to market. Every single looter shooter I have probably played because of this game.
All right.
So
here we go. We're about to attempt the
it's
Vault
crazy.
of Glass. I want you
Brings
all
back
to,
memories. I loved
remain
playing that
frosty,
game. That was fun.
Be brave.
yeah,
The
I'm.
superlatives that Destiny has to offer.
If I had an ask, I want to see Bungie take a crack at another new IP.
Sure.
Right, and I look forward to see what they're going to do. Presumably they've been working on something else. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I would have to think. Who knows? I'm sure we'll see something here soon. So the next game I ended up going with was one that had a lot of controversy around it. And, No Man's Sky had a rough beginning. And there was some reasoning around that. some of the expectation was, I think, set too high. The bar was set too high, and no matter how close they got, they would have never hit that because Sony had marketing behind this game and was involved heavily with it. And I think overall that was a good thing, but it was like a bad thing at the same time. I wonder, I always question, would we have gotten the game we have today with this if they would have been, you know, not as successful and just barely broke even or something like that, and really didn't have any high revenue hope or potential. Would they have still went down the road and did everything they've done here?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this one of Sony's kind of first forays into partnering up with what we now consider to be an indie developer?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So this was like an indie game that got Sony's full AAA marketing
Yep.
machine backing, right?
Yeah, they were. I think they had a heavy hand in like what was going on.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is made from This is made by Hello Games. On PC, it's published by Hello Games, but on console, like PS4, I think it's published by Sony.
Yeah, and then because now you can get this on PC, you can get it on Steam, you can get it on Xbox.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of content you can buy for it, and
Right.
it has VR support now, which is kind of completely absurd because it's one of the most accurate kind of VR experiences you can have. Almost to the level where it takes a lot of the fun away.
If you've never played this game, this is the closest I've seen to the promise of I'm on a world, I'm building a base, I build a ship, I fly into outer space,
Yep.
and now I have my pick of hundreds or thousands of planets that you travel to in real time. It is true, like, what do you want to call it? I don't know if I want to call it Star Trek, but all these little white dots are planets you can go to.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could choose how to get there, and it would be like different directions.
Right.
Different. And really, the developer at the time when this launched, they had good reception. Yes, people were angry, but still people were buying it, not
Sure.
returning it. The developer had all the right in the world just to kind of go, okay, we're done, and we're going to leave now. We're done with this thing.
Right.
They didn't. Hello Games stuck around for a long time. They've developed brand new tools.
They have more than made good on their
Yeah,
promise to
they
me.
really went out of their way to make sure everybody felt like they had gotten the product that they deserved or wanted 5 years prior. You know, it took them a couple years, but
It has full base building, full
Yes.
multiplayer, full terraforming. It's a social MMO. It's got not like shoehorned in VR, like your VR experience, you can go play the entire
Yeah.
game in full.
yeah,
right?
this is a much better VR experience than even like Resident Evil.
Yeah, this takes
Yeah.
all of the tools you would want in VR, or you would imagine in VR, and put them there. I think there's
Yeah.
even like taming or riding at this point in the game now of like the various
I want to say yes.
creatures,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we went back, and I was apprehensive when you were like, we're going to go play the VR piece. Because I've played this game a couple of times over, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can go back to that well. But I was really impressed. And that's
Yeah,
to
they
say,
did a lot.
I played it on the PS4 Pro
Yep.
with the VR headset.
Yep.
So I even imagine there was a slightly better experience if you were playing these on like a PC where maybe you had a little bit better draw distance or a little bit better resolution on the headset. But we had a pretty
Yeah.
good time when me and you and Scott were playing.
Oh, I did. Yeah, that was fun. Definitely enjoyed it. We didn't even get anywhere near the building or anything like that, or the base building or
Right.
anything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was. It's quite an impressive game. Let's see. So we're now into 2015 for you.
You're actually going to grab another
Oh,
2014.
another 2014.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And I was a little apprehensive adding this to the list because this game didn't actually come out in 2014. So I'm going to cheat because I played the remastered version in
Yeah.
2014. This is Last of Us, which is a game you see common enough on people's lists. It is not my favorite Sony game ever, but the reason I ended up picking this was because it's hard for me to think and look at all the games that Sony did after the fact and not see the stamp that this left with like the way the narrative is told.
Oh, yeah.
The way the characters are written. That if you go look at a game like God of War or a game like Horizon, it's really easy to see some parts of this
Yeah.
in it, right?
Oh, for sure.
Sony kind of, this game came out, and I even remember my falling into this was I worked with someone, and they were like, "You play Last of Us," and I was like, "The guys that made Uncharted did a zombie game. I'm not interested." And they were like, "Huh, really? I kind of thought this would be like right up your alley, of like, white male badassery or whatever you want to call it." And then what the game kind of tricks you into is you don't really understand this up front, that you're like, great, I got stuck with this little kid, right? And the little kid ends up becoming quite the little trooper as well.
Yeah, by the end, she's tough.
Yeah.
She's a hardened killer.
So it's like I said, it's not my favorite game that Sony's ever made, but it's hard for me to think of everything Sony has been working on now and not see a little bit of this in it.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. No, solid pick. Let's see here. Last of Us. My next one, get back to where we need to be, is another indie game. This is the first in the survival franchise. It's, well, not the first in the survival franchise, but one of the best examples of a survival game. And this is called The Long Dark. And this is a game made by Hinterland Studio up in Canada. And essentially, when the game first launched, there was no story mode. You were basically put onto a plot of like snow-covered land somewhere in northern Canada. And you had to traverse your way to find shelter, food, ways to hunt, ways to fish, heat, all sorts of stuff. And you had the shelter, well, you had not a shelter, but you had like different cabins and things you could run into.
Was this early access on launch?
It was.
It was. Okay.
It was. It came from the greenlight process.
Okay, so I guess which is what became early access.
Which is what became early access, yeah. But this game stood on its own for a long time. The developers supported it since the game first deployed, I think, in 2013, but it didn't officially launch until 2017.
And this is one of those projects where they kind of let you play early, they take feedback, and they add and add and add and add, and eventually what they come up with is a full released game.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that about sums it up.
Okay.
In that sense. So the game, though, ended up getting like a full release as it got a campaign mode, and they continue to update it, very similar to the way No Man's Sky and Hello Games worked. They continue to upgrade it, update it, and it's no charge to you or I.
Right.
So that's the pretty phenomenal component, is they've actually made this to a full like standalone game. Has all of the connectivity and everything that you'd need through cell phones or, Wi-Fi or whatever link. You're able to talk through the game, and they do just a really good job of giving you enough supplies to get comfortable, to get started. But then they really start to like claw it away, and you have to start learning how to hunt for food, how to do this, how to do that. No blood from a stone, as far as I know, but.
Do you know what Hinterland is working on next?
No.
No.
I don't know if they're working on anything other than this.
Got it. Okay.
This is all they've worked on as far as I know.
They're actively updating this game like 2020
type
of stuff. Oh, okay.
Yep. They do holiday event, and I know that they have stuff incoming, and if you follow them on any of their social media channels, I've gotten a chance to meet their founder. He's a really, really nice guy. I mean, probably one of the better people in the gaming industry.
Okay.
And he really believes, it came from EA, and he worked on bigger projects. I think he was on Dead Space 3.
Okay.
And when he left there, he wanted to make his own game, and he got funding through the Canadian Media Fund, which is, federal government.
By the government, yeah.
And they've supported them, and they continue to hire, and they're always flourishing with just this one title.
Okay, so this is not, I remember during the Game Awards, they showed off this, like, the Forest-looking game or something. They're not the studio responsible for that. The Forest is a different set of guys.
Totally different group.
Okay.
Totally different group. But along the same lines. Still survival, still this, still that.
Sure.
But probably the best survival game and probably one of the best indie games ever is The Long Dark.
Okay.
And it's always on sale, and it's a really good game. I think you can usually pick it up for around 15, I think. I want to say when it's on sale.
Okay.
So, phenomenal game. Oh, jumped to the wrong screen. Okay, let's get out of there. Let's find your, 6 or 5?
Yeah, this will be for 2015.
Okay.
There you go.
Wow.
So
That long ago?
This is gonna be a fun pick. So,
Holy cow.
Torn from my elders, I was
Metal Gear Solid 4 is probably my favorite PlayStation 3 game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with
And
that.
it's not, there's not even really a close second.
Yep.
So, that was one of the first that was probably the first Metal Gear game that I absolutely fell in love with.
how I saw
And it's probably the game that
words can
put Kojima and his studio or his projects in such high praise.
Sure.
And this game had a couple of controversies so this is Metal Gear 5: The Phantom Pain, which is actually a sequel to this PlayStation Portable game called Metal Gear Peace Walker,
Yes.
which introduced some of these building mechanics. This game got heat for a couple reasons. The first one was it came out with this really expensive demo before that did not sit well with some people.
I complained left and right about that because I will say this, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes was the demo.
Yes.
And the game could be completed, not beat, but completed in like 45 minutes.
Yeah. So like $1 a minute.
Yeah.
Which is kind of expensive.
Yes, which was extremely expensive at the point in time. But to the surprise of a lot of people, you could continue to play the game over and over again and unlock new things.
Yes.
And it would run into the 5, 6, 7 hours
Right.
range. I
Right.
think it gave you even more than that.
Right.
But it gave you more abilities, more... I don't even know. Did it give you a special ending? I think it did.
And then it also gave you a bunch of, you could earn unlockables for the full game as well.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it was.
So, yeah, so if you want, so the second controversy was they got rid of David Hayter as the voice of Snake. And if you
Who
want
had
to...
been the voice for...
Ever. Yeah.
At least 4 or 5
Right.
of the... I'm not sure if they had a Snake didn't talk in PSP versions, did he? In Peace Walker he did, but those other comic ones and all that, like the digital comics he did.
So then, if you want to see how influential 24 was to my media excitement,
Yeah.
when they announced Kiefer Sutherland as the voice and the facial mocap actor, I was like, "Who's David Hayter?"
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I couldn't have cared less. I was really excited about this.
Did it pan out, though?
Oh, I love this game.
You do?
I absolutely love this game.
Well, I guess it worked out.
I've played this game up through. I have there's like 4 or 5 endings of this.
Oh, okay.
Because the game kind of gives you a boss fight at mission like 33 or 34.
Yep.
But you can play this up into like mission 70 something.
Yeah.
And you get full explanations of like, you kind of
Who
see
all the character and
who all the characters are. You see characters that become famous later. You get to see the introduction of the cloned versions of Snake when they're young, right?
You get to see Ocelot in it.
Yeah, you get young Ocelot in there. You get there's all sorts of stuff with the Major.
Yep.
I love it's open world. It takes place in Afghanistan, and then there's a second one in Africa.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, I played 100 hours of this easily. This was I didn't even pick another game in 2015. The second I was going through all the games and I saw this, I stopped looking because this game was really heavy for 2015. I love this game.
Yeah, no, it looked good. And then it did one of the ultimate things that made it infamous. It moved and went on to Metal Gear Online.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Which is without Kojima.
Yeah.
Put zombies. Put more
Yeah,
zombies.
and it's like this is probably, I think this might have been his first taste of working with some finger quotes Hollywood talent.
Yeah.
So then when you go look at the cast of Death Stranding, it's not hard to see.
I wonder if he got to be so buddy with like Kiefer Sutherland as he is with like the other ones.
I don't actually know the full story. I know that one year Kojima got an award.
Yeah.
And Konami said you're not going and taking it. Like, we're in control of your employment. So I know that Kiefer actually was there at the show and accepted it on his behalf.
Yeah, that sucks.
Right? It was all made good like a year or two later when they gave him like some other honorary award, and he was actually there in person. Like Jeff Keighley gave him for his show, right?
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to have a video game award show when your buddy is
right.
one of the head producers.
But yeah, this game, the story's told in a way that's a little complicated.
Yeah,
it's chopped up into
as all Metal Gears are. I mean, they're not as easy to follow as some more dumbed down kind of games.
Yeah, and Metal Gear itself is not told in chronological order. So 3 and 5
that's where it gets
come before 1 and 2 and 4, and it's told in this kind of out of order process.
Yeah, and there's different ways to like play it to get the best kind of experience, and multiple ways to run through it in terms of which game you play first and so forth. I'm gonna, for my 6th game, there's probably 4 of my favorites, and what I'll do is I'll pick the least favorite of it, not for any reason other than it's a different type of experience.
Yep.
And that's Fallout 4 VR. Fallout 4 VR is probably the most comprehensive game on the market in terms of like how close it comes to the real thing.
Right.
Everything in Fallout 4 that you can do in the regular game, the non-VR, you can do in the VR game.
There's no compromise.
There is no compromise. It is the full game. It is such a full game that they've never been able to get it onto all VR platforms.
Right.
It's not on the PS VR for the PlayStation 4. It's not on any of the Oculus or any of that stuff.
Right.
It's like the only one it can run on is the Steam integration with Vive or with the Index. And that is it. That's like all you can do. And you can play the full game of Fallout 4 all the way through. That's probably at bare minimum a 20-25 hour game. And you can play all of it through VR, and you can play all probably 60 hours of side quests and everything in VR. So you have, you hold the controller, you lift your arm up, the Pip-Boy comes up and expands, and then you can use the other one to like select things.
Right.
It does the full integration, which is pretty fantastic. And then some of the battles that you do with like Death Claws, where you've got like the big chain gun and all of that, and you're in the power suit of armor.
Right.
You feel like you're in the power suit.
People had always wondered, like when VR first came out, the experiences people were still kind of getting ready.
Sort of guessing to how extensive it would be.
Right, but it is a full, uncompromised. It's got all the RPG portions,
Yep.
all the quests, like every single
All the
thing
DLC,
you could do.
everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. And a close second is Skyrim.
Right.
Skyrim VR, Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim VR, is as comparable to Fallout 4 in VR, but there's not as much technical advancement in doing that one.
Right.
Skyrim has its own unique components, and it would have made this list, although it did in a way, but the VR would have made this list, but there's a lot of other experiences that are a little bit better than that. And No Man's Sky, as we said, is another one that's like very close to it. But Skyrim, you had the ability, if you had the wands, to like cast spells, to dual wield like a shield and a sword.
Right.
There's just so many cool things that they did with it. It's just the game has been ported to so much, I kind of felt like it was enough, right? Like,
Right.
Skyrim could have won so many different ways if you were to put it up in like, oh, the Switch game of the year, well, Skyrim was on it. Oh my God, they put the whole game on there. It had motion control. It had Link as the little character.
You could get some exclusive Nintendo stuff in there,
I mean,
right?
there were so many things that you could do with it that made it a good game and a better experience to tack on to Skyrim. For any of these friends, they even put Skyrim on that Amazon Echo.
That's right. I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
And people thought it was a joke, but it was real. So Skyrim got enough acclaim. Fallout 4 being in VR and that is fantastic. It's an amazing thing if you have all the money to throw at it, because it takes $1,000 setup of headset and controllers.
Oh, it might even be
PC to
more
run
than $1,000 setup.
Yeah, I mean it's not a cheap experience.
Yeah,
but it is the most comprehensive experience out there.
Definitely.
Borderlands is close though. Borderlands VR is really good. So, your seventh one.
Yeah, so
we've already talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, so once people saw the success that Destiny was having in recruiting players and trying to keep them happy, Ubisoft tried their hand at a shared world, open world looter shooter, right? Plot twist on this was Ubi gave us all a promise of what was going to be in Destiny. When you get a weapon drop, the gun is yours. In Division, when you get a weapon drop in the Dark Zone, the gun is not yours. It is free for all.
Temporarily yours.
Friends are made. Friendships have been ruined on this. I say that jokingly. But
it's a tense scenario of you don't necessarily, just because you have it in your clutches doesn't mean you get it until you get it out of the air.
You got to extract it. And there's enemies that can screw you over, and there's humans that can screw you over, and sometimes...
And it's not just your friends in the group that can screw you over. It's like totally different people playing on the server. I forget how many people could play.
I think it was 16 initially.
16 in one Dark Zone. Experience.
So while the game was not perfect, I think at some point every person I am friends with, we played this together.
I enjoyed this. This was really fun.
Yeah.
I thought Division was... And I enjoyed Division at different points because they kept adding to it, like DLC.
Right.
And they put new modes in, and man, when there were some of the whiteouts going on in the game, it made it pretty intense because you couldn't see. There was a lot of this.
Oh, there was absolutely a lot of this.
Standoff between people.
Oh yeah.
And because there was a risk and there was a reward system and a demerit type system.
Yeah, when you died, you lost a tremendous, hours, if not days of XP.
Yeah,
it was.
There was a lot of work.
It was punishing. Yeah. So it was really tense.
Yeah, and then they changed that up a little bit too.
It became a little too tense. Yeah. So
but some of those different events that they put in there, where it was. What was the one that we played where it was like...
Me and you and John played the survive mode.
The survive mode, yeah.
Yeah.
Where you had to go get all of the stuff, laying around.
Everybody starts off with really basic gear, right?
And you can get a little bit better, but then you're all trying to get to an extraction zone.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what it was.
And there's a little bit of last man standing where you slowly but surely kind of get picked off until one remains or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It was ahead of its time in terms of against a Fortnite kind of scenario.
Yeah.
You could group up together, and it played just really well. The first one did a lot of good things. It was all based in New York.
Yep.
During Christmas time.
Yep.
Although it was supposed to launch, I think, before holiday, and it ended up launching
March next year or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of oh man, they missed it, but they couldn't wait any longer.
So if there was a second game to Destiny that's got hours, I don't know that I've ever tracked them. I probably have 1,000 hours in this game.
Yeah, you put a lot more time in.
Me and John were ranked 99 Dark Zone.
Yeah, you went all the way up to the top.
We played this game as about as completely as you could. We had the best gear,
at
the
points
best
you
guns.
were just not untouchable.
Oh, at points in this, our team was we would roll in and it was madness.
Yeah,
we could probably take down the entire server.
Yeah, I remember you guys running around and you were, because in the Dark Zone there would become a wanted level.
Yeah, like a manhunt status.
like a manhunt style. And everybody would get some real big bonus for taking you down.
Right.
And you guys were chased for hours on there.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
never die.
Oh yeah.
Like you were able to just be able to withstand it. Right there's an extraction going on, and they just took them out where they were trying to put their stuff on that rope to get the gear out.
Yep.
And somebody would just be a smart ass and shoot into the crowd.
Yeah, this was.
And everything would go south at that point.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Oh, Bronson. I don't know,
Yeah,
Bronson. I don't
Bronson's
think
either
you're
going to
getting your
make it
stuff
or
out,
not. That's a
Bronson.
nice bag you got. I don't think he's going to do it. Yeah, there would be a lot of turning. But then a lot of people got smart, and it wasn't worth like attacking each other, and it was cool for a while before everybody got all the high-end gear, and then it like became a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, you know, the game also did some fun stuff
They
where
balanced it a lot too. So
they, like some of these live games, they had to really learn to make changes on the fly,
Yeah.
try to keep everyone happy, try to not piss off
Available
too
March
many
8th,
people
2016.
all at once.
it becomes a delicate scenario where
Right.
you have to run a games as a service, and you're trying to keep the base happy, but then appease like the high-end players, and still attract the lower, the newcomers to the game, and not make them feel ousted. Yeah.
Right.
It's tough business. I talked about it briefly just a minute ago, but my 8th game of that decade comes in as Skyrim. A lot of people love this game. I don't really know if there's anybody that hates it.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a whole,
Looks like
this game is accepted as one of those that you can
I don't think we should
play so many different ways that everybody can enjoy it.
Sure.
If you just want to be a pacifist in the game, you can play the whole game as a pacifist.
Right.
If you want to attack everybody and like take the whole world for yourself, you can do that. If you want to play along the storylines, you can do that. If you want to just go through and decimate every NPC in the game, there's almost a way you can do that.
Right.
It also then is stacked upon the level of modding is about on a scale to 1 to 10, it's about 100
Right.
in the amount of mods that you can find for this game.
Right.
There's so many that it's broken down into 2 different companies that do it. There's the mods you can find on Steam, which are extensive, and Steam, rewards people for making mods. And then there's Nexus Mod, which is a totally different
Right.
site that
Right.
enables modding for it.
You can mod this to the point where you can kind of fundamentally almost change the game in ways.
You can change it in so many
Yeah.
different ways, and you can also make it almost look like a 4K game. That's
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
the people that go out there and create standalone DLC questing for this
Right.
are working for Bethesda now,
Right.
because they've done it so extensively. They go out and hire voice actors, they go out and hire artists,
Right.
and they make mods that are rival and are even better in some cases than the DLCs that they sold from the original developer. Right, from Bethesda. It's an impressive game. A lot of people are looking for Elder Scrolls 6 to be hopefully along this lines and not along the line of like Fallout 76.
Right.
But who knows what'll end up happening. But I think the Elder Scrolls franchise, I want to say this, is probably safe from a lot of the same things that befell the Fallout franchise, because they've already taken the Elder Scrolls into online.
Right.
It's an MMO. There's an MMO already.
A completely separate game.
Completely separate game. It's already in the world, and they're going through and they're making DLCs, and people buy all sorts of stuff, and a lot of the ideas that they came up for Fallout 76 came out of like the MMO of Elder Scrolls. So I kind of see that the Elder Scrolls series, as it is, like Elder Scrolls 6, will be untouched and probably similar game to what Skyrim was.
Right.
I don't think they'll want to do the same with that as they did with Fallout 76, which I still think was a fun game. We had a great time with it.
Oh yeah.
It would not fall into my like top games of the decade, but it was still a great game, and it had its own place. But I think that they still have to prove themselves, and who knows, maybe in this current decade, if they put any NPCs, we'll be talking about this in 2030 as like an amazing Fallout 76 is an amazing game from the past decade. Who knows? But this will definitely come within this next decade. This game launched in 2011.
My expectation,
people still play
my
this.
expectation is that we're going to get Starfield first, though.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
This is probably a game that launches. I still believe it'll be February 2nd of 2022. So it'll be 2-2, or it'll be 2,
Okay.
2-2 of 2-2.
Right, okay.
I think
11,
that's when
11,
they'll
11
launch
or
it.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? So
That's when they launched this was 11/11/11.
right.
So I think they'll do the same thing. That's my prediction. But we'll see. But I do believe Starfield will come first.
Okay.
I think they're closer with that.
Yeah.
And they want to get a new IP built up.
I think Starfield was
They
also.
got to have that because in 10 years they'll make another one.
I think Todd Howard's kind of openly said that Starfield is in fact closer to release than ES6.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So.
So it'll be interesting, but Elder Scrolls Skyrim is an amazing game. It is quite fun. And you can play it however you want.
How many platforms do you own this game on?
I've bought it so many times, and I bought it twice on each platform because they made what did they call it? The special edition?
Or was
Where
it the
it had
remastered
like
one?
God rays and like
Right.
upgraded
Right.
like, assets and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I bought it multiple times, but I probably own it on every platform except for Xbox One.
It's probably the game that I think forced the console platforms to consider the idea of mods. Because before then, no game had really pushed that
Yeah.
envelope.
Yeah, nobody really went that far.
And the console players that owned the game were feeling a little slighted seeing what PC
Yep.
got their hands on.
They
So,
did, yeah, for sure. Okay, so your next one comes in 2017.
Yep. I remember this trailer being shown, and they're like Guerrilla Games, and I'm like, great, Killzone 5. I really didn't need another Killzone
Yeah,
game.
Killzone it's a good game,
Right.
but it just never was a franchise that caught on.
Yeah. So the other game that came out this year that I really considered was Resident Evil 7, which I love as a game. I love as a VR game. I have shown it to everybody I know. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week, so we won't go down that full road again. But
Of the ones that came before.
the trailer starts playing, and it's pretty quick. Everybody quickly figures out that we are not getting another Killzone game. So
Unless they time travel.
yeah, right.
They
So
could.
so we're looking at this like
Rebuilt
post-apocalyptic
incredible
cities have been
towers
crushed,
that
Yep.
reached the
and
stars,
no one's really sure why.
but a darkness came.
So
And their
the game's
cities
called Horizon Zero
turned to
Dawn,
graves.
and basically the world was kind of happy, and then something went
land.
down,
Yep.
right?
Started to
And
change.
normally I wouldn't ask you to do this, but can you bump forward the video a little bit
Yeah.
and get to where we've actually got some
Dinos.
Yeah.
Dangerous
So
balance
then
between man
in another plot
machine.
twist, the main character of this game was not a middle-aged pissed-off man,
Right.
but
right.
was actually this woman named Aloy,
It was
and
early 20s, maybe.
something like that, yeah. And so there's essentially three stories that are told in this game. There's a story about the past, a story about the tribes, and the story of Aloy, where she came from, and they all sort of intersect at a certain point in the story. But the hook of this game is it's an open world quasi stealth action game where you kind of
Very little one. I couldn't let you
there's
go
these
without.
there's this robotic dinosaur race that has taken over the world for one reason or another, and the hook of the combat is that you can kind of pick apart all of these bosses in various ways to actually get them down to, you don't just shoot arrows and
Yeah,
do
you're not going
damage
to win
and
the
kill.
battles that way. Yeah.
Right, so all of these dinos, they've got strategies, they communicate with each other, you can ride them,
Yep.
you can take their parts and use them against them, you can take their parts and upgrade your own stuff, right? So this was I had a lot of fun with this game. I'm damn near a platinum. There's a couple reasons I didn't get it, because there's one really fetchy thing.
Yeah, that you gotta do over and over.
Yeah, but outside of that, the DLC for this was fun. The story's pretty good. I have not been told this or read this, but I can all but guarantee there will be another one of these, because this game was a massive success for both Guerrilla and Sony. So
Yeah, they really got a good franchise to build off of, for sure.
yeah, I don't know that I need to. It'll be tough for them to not have her, because she's become a favorite amongst fans. So how the story works out, I'm not completely sure of, but this is like become like a big franchise for them,
Yeah.
right? So I would love to play another one. This whole sequence you're seeing where you're picking apart stuff, this is actually in the game. This wasn't like, oh, we're showing this off and then
Yeah,
a
no,
watered
at
down
this
version.
point, people were pretty blown away, because this came out in 2017.
Yes.
This was maybe 3 or 4 years. Maybe the 4th year from the PS4 launching.
Yep.
And they just really laid it all on the line, because they were putting tech in this game that you hadn't seen yet.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the cover and the motion of like the leaves and everything as you walk through it. I mean, it looked really good.
4K HDR,
Yeah.
this game is stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's stunning on a, like, however, 5 or 6 year old PlayStation at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they were doing a lot of work to make this thing look really solid.
Yeah, and this engine is what they handed off to Kojima for his latest game.
Yep.
So.
And there was a little bit of a
there's
tip
a
of the hat.
There's a little Easter egg.
Some
in
of
the
those
game.
big
Yeah.
dinos, you saw the real big ones with the circular heads.
The
Yep.
stories
They
don't
show up
tell
in the game
where
and
the
inside of
impulse
Death Stranding. So
Yep.
they really did
They
some
don't
cool
tell us
stuff.
why the
Yeah.
machines
So
do
for
these
fear
things.
of not always wanting a sequel, I'll take another one of these.
Yeah.
Silence cannot
No,
last.
that was a fantastic game. And it got a lot of great push from Sony. They didn't just let that disappear. So let's see. My number 9. We're getting close to the end here. My number 9. Where did my stuff go? There it is. Is a game that I think most people enjoy. I think it's better than Skyrim, and that's The Witcher 3.
Right.
I think that it's a more complete experience in terms of high fantasy and like what you can do in the game, the magic, the sword play is very similar to like a Dark Souls. The challenge level is very similar to, Dark Souls level.
Right.
There are areas where you will just get completely wiped.
It's not an easy game.
It's not an easy game. You can actually play on very hard, and it's extremely difficult. And it's from a company called CD Projekt Red. If you hadn't heard of them, they have taken a franchise that was built off of a book series, The Witcher. This is the third one in the installment. This was the most recent game that they had done. They have another big game launching here in a few months,
Right.
which is Cyberpunk. So we're all looking forward to that. But this game, I think in terms of open world games, this game took that experience to a totally different level. While Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption 2 have some amazing experiences within themselves, Witcher takes that and goes tenfold, because you can go into the water, you can go across the lands, you can interact with people, you can do magic, you can search for herbs just like you can in all the other ones, but your experience in terms of story, I think it's still the better of the three.
I always feel like you can see them learning a lot from their past
Oh, yeah.
games. And this is like a real culmination of like, let's really show off all the things that we've done
Yep.
and learned and put it together.
There are PCs that can still not run this game
Right.
at 60 frames per second
Right.
with everything turned on.
And it would be wrong of me to not mention that there's so much depth in this game that the in-game card game turned into a full standalone
Yeah.
card game called Gwent.
Yep.
Right.
Gwent is its own game available, I think, on mobile and on PC.
There were people that liked that portion of the game so much that the developer went out and took it out of the game and made it its own thing, right?
Yeah. And two other things about this game. So this game single-handedly put GOG, goodoldgames.com, or GOG.com, on the map because that's the sister company to CD Projekt Red. So it did that by not having it exclusive and doing the same type of nonsense that Epic does.
Sure.
They put it on every other platform and on their own.
Right.
And made the game stand out on that platform that people wanted it so much they went over there because they gave away probably another $50 or $60 worth of free DLC.
Yeah.
Over there. I mean, they just really put it out there and they really gave people a lot of different ways to access the game. They sold it on every major platform. They have put it on and ported it to every major console. They've also even been able to fit it onto the Nintendo Switch.
Got this on
the whole
Switch.
thing on the single little card. It's not that you have to download anything more.
Right.
It's all on a 32 gigabit card. So the effort and level that they go to put this game and make it complete on every platform is above and beyond what most developers want to do.
The fact that you can get Witcher 3 with the Wild Hunt on sale for like, I've seen it for like $20 or $25,
I think
might be
yeah.
the biggest steal of like
I think I've seen it for 12 over this past Christmas season.
$12
Yeah.
for, I don't know, 200, 250, 300 hours of
Something to
content,
that effect, yeah.
right? That's, you know.
It's so much that most people never saw the end or near the end of it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right? It's a lot. The game is fantastic and the storytelling is excellent. The voicing, it's pretty phenomenal. It's a great experience. There's really, whether you like the westerns, whether you like current time, whether you like high fantasy like this, you're not going to go wrong by playing Grand Theft Auto 5,
Right.
Red Dead Redemption 2, or The Witcher 3.
Right.
But they're all, fantastic to the level of depth and everything.
Oh, it's like one of the pinnacle fantasy games.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was my ninth one. You're coming up on the end of this. Let's get us over to your final game that you picked for your top decades.
Yep. So there's a caveat here. We're not going to touch 2019.
Yeah,
I'm not
we've
going
kinda
to
talked
because
about
we
it.
spent all last episode. This was probably the toughest pick. I debated between, ultimately in 2018, I debated between God of War,
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2, Monster Hunter Worlds, and Subnautica. They were all worthy of the best game that came out that year. All of them are very different.
Yep.
I can't give you a core reason why I ultimately picked this. It was probably a combination of, I never really liked God of War, and I'll be honest. I've been honest about that.
Yeah, it's a different type of.
They're good games. I just never really, they never really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So after about 4 or 5 years of leaks of this whole concept of Kratos in a Norse setting, it was revealed to be true, and it turned into this really, it's one of the first fantasy games I've ever gotten into, and I think that's probably why I picked it, because I don't really, fantasy's not my favorite subject, but this had a good combination of, they changed up the combat, they kind of slowed it down, it was more strategic, they had crafting in the game, you had a little companion similar to Last of Us.
Yeah, a totally different fighting style.
Yeah. The game is gorgeous.
Yeah, it does look fun.
Especially you go look at this thing on a PS Pro with 4K HDR. The boss fights are fun. The traveling is interesting. The way the story takes place, the worlds they introduce you to. It was a complete package this year in 2018 when it came out.
Now you can get the game. I mean, I've seen people buy this for $9, $9.99.
Yeah, I spent like $69 and I felt like I got my money's worth. So
Yeah.
$10 is another one of those. Yeah, review this at the price point of $9.99. Right.
Nature fights with
It might
it.
be one of the best. It might be one of the best deals ever.
Yeah, I won't spoil, but at the end of the game, once you finish it up, if you go back home, you get to meet a character, and I'm pretty excited to see what they do next
Yeah.
with this franchise.
Yeah, no, they did a great job, and that snake right there, that's a phenomenal scene event that goes on with that the world.
The World Serpent.
Yeah, that one was really cool.
Yeah, they had a fun, later in the game, there's a fun wave mode, there's a fun trial mode, and I would say my absolute favorite thing about this is the game introduces, as you're playing, these enemies called Valkyries.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you run into them at a time in the game, and it's frustrating because you're clearly not supposed to be able to kill them,
Yeah.
right? And there's a fight in this game that I think is one of the more the Mother Valkyrie, the Valkyrie of the Valkyries,
Yeah.
took me days of pounding my head against it. This was some From Software type of stuff that they got themselves involved with. I was really, really excited about it.
Yeah, they did a lot for it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, my final game, probably my favorite game of the decade, that I spent hands down the most time with, is a From Software game, and it's actually Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3, I think, I loved all the different ones. I've played all these ever since Demon Souls, which was in the aughts or whatever, the 2008, maybe 2009.
2009,
when it came out.
yeah.
Played Dark Souls, played Dark Souls 2, played Bloodborne and Sekiro. And I believe, like, at this point in Dark Souls 3, this came out in 2016, From Software hit, like, the peak of their art, of their craft. They built a game that had everything you were looking for in this type of franchise, or in this type of game genre, and also included everything that you could imagine in terms of like co-op, invading, multiplayer, combat, PvE, PvP. They had it seamless. They had it to where it didn't hitch. There was nothing wrong with it. There were bosses. There were secrets. I went through and played the game, platinumed the thing. It took me probably a month, a complete solid month of playing.
I remember when you were doing it.
100 plus hours to just get that. And I don't think I really touched the level of PvE that most people, or PvP that most people do. I played it to get through the game. Welcome, Dios, and no worries, we understand you have to hit the hay. I played it to get through the game, and the way you got the full platinum in it was that you had to go through and do every aspect of the game.
Right.
You had to sit there and go through the PvE, the PvP. You had to find every single area. And even when you got the platinum, there were a couple bosses. There was at least one boss I know of that you did not have to fight to get that was hidden. And I went through and found that boss. And some of those were the most difficult battles. And then I went through all of the DLC and everything that there was. And the game is phenomenal, and it's beautiful as you go through. And you can just continue to play it over and over and over again. Even when I got through all that, I kept playing it.
Well, the New Game Plus feature of this is yet another feature
Yeah.
that they had.
And you can usually go to like 9.
8 or 9,
Eight or
yeah.
9 New Game Pluses. And that's a totally different way to crush your soul.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you can go through and play that forever, and the game's difficulty just increases, and they want you to come back for more. And even when people were so frustrated with it, they still, I think, enjoyed it as one of the best experiences they had ever had. And we were talking prior to the show, and it was kind of funny that there were people that said Demon Souls was the biggest waste of time that From Software had ever made. And that this game would go nowhere. This franchise, this genre of gameplay was not for anybody's liking.
Yeah.
And today, probably this is the most successful genre that was created in the past 10 years, I think, of any that I'd ever seen.
Yeah, the reason no From Software game showed up on my list is not because I don't fully agree with everything you just said, because I do.
Yeah.
I came to this developer a little bit later. It wasn't even until I saw we were playing that free Let It Die game.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, it's like Souls. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I had played these games. I'd played a couple of them. I'd played Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And I got that, and I was like, but this isn't even fun. Like, I was playing it like Double Dragon, where you just run around, and I had not clued into how you play these games, even like conceptually.
Yeah.
Right? So then, once I got hooked on them, I played like in a row all of them.
Yeah.
Right? We played like Bloodborne, into 3, into the DLC.
Yep.
Ended up with 1 remastered, and then that's when I got to Sekiro as kind of like on launch day.
Yeah.
Right? So.
And Sekiro changed it up completely. I mean, it made a different type of game, and there was reasoning in that, because they didn't include, like, Dark Souls, a lot of people complain about it because it didn't have an easy mode. Well, easy mode was co-op. If you were to call anything, co-op was easy mode, because if you got the right people in there with you, they could help you get through certain things.
Right.
Sekiro didn't have an easy mode. It didn't have co-op or anything like that. Like, it was just a brutal game. And I think that Dark Souls, you could turn off co-op. You could not play with people and all that. And you'd have the same exact experience. And to a certain degree, I think even more, Dark Souls added a level of difficulty, because you didn't play as just one character. You could play as any kind of character. Magic only. You could play as like pure brute force. You could play where you had no armor, and you played with the biggest, heaviest thing there was, the sword, or whatever.
That's why I like this game ultimately more than
the configuration.
Bloodborne is. You've got the jewelry, you've got the rings, you've got the weapon, you have the concept of things have weight, and you know, so
they knew how to add a new level of difficulty, and the DLCs were great. The entire package was amazing, and it culminated in the end of a story.
Right.
Although people didn't really get the story initially on the first time through, if you read all the different weapons in each of the games or items, you understood what the story was going for, and that's how they told the story, was through the items you found.
Well, the story is very much, it's not like Metal Gear Exposition where they play a 30-minute cutscene and you have someone explain to you exactly what the conspiracy is. This is like, the story is there, but you have to go find it.
Yep.
Right?
Essentially, the story, just is, at the highest level, is there were lords that held the fire of the world, and as the fire went out, there were people, because the lords didn't want to deal with it anymore, they just didn't tend the fire, the flames, they brought new cinders or ashen into the world to be able to to force these lords to go back and handle this and deal with it. And it's a completely, it's an amazing story, but it's also hard to explain.
Sure.
Why you would want to play through it. And you have to play through all 3 to be able to understand the full story.
I love exploring the worlds that they build.
Yeah.
In these. They're really, really fun. Not every game I play doesn't have to be as challenging as this. Sometimes I'm looking for something a little more.
A little bit less of
a little bit more
nightmare.
a little bit more chill, but I'll never forget the night when we kept going down and down and down, and we're like, oh, molten mountains. Oh, now we're in some kind of like ancient tomb. Oh, and we're gonna go down again.
Yeah, they
Right.
built their levels not in like linear or horizontal fashions. They built them horizontal and vertical. If you ever saw the map of a Dark Souls game with it in a 3D kind of like, if you could take it out and make it into like a 3D like image, it would look like a honeycomb almost, like a beehive.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the way that it's built,
Right.
it's very strange to see until you actually see it.
Right.
And then you understand, like, oh, it's, you know, the what you traverse while you're going left and right is also like hundreds of stories, you know, in terms of like where you go from the very, very bottom to the very, very top of where you end up.
Right.
It's pretty impressive how they built them. They were pretty fascinating. So yeah, that was my best game of the decade, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to flip our last little video on
Yeah,
there?
the last thing.
So we're going to continue on with these guys. We kind of decided, we said, is there one developer that you felt like kind of owned the decade? And sure, there's like a lot of opinions on that. This was my choice was them, because all the other developers of the games that I picked, they had all in some way or another, I either grew up playing their games, or I knew of their games, or they made games for the machine themselves in the case of Sony, right? This was a developer that I came to much more recently. This is in the last probably few years for me.
Yeah.
And they have turned into, anytime a From Software game is announced, I don't have to know anything. It's a buy.
Yeah, it's one
Right.
of those things where you feel comfortable just buying it based upon their development.
Every single game they make is good, and that's a rarity
Yeah,
in
is.
today's world. Whether that's because some people are experimenting with games, or we're trying new business models, or we're taking things that used to be offline and making them online. These are probably the game I have the most fun. Like when you and I like play together, this is the developer I like playing most.
Yep.
When we play co-op or with
yeah,
three
they've
players.
made it probably some of the best co-op experience out there.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot. You know, they just don't do Dark Souls or Bloodborne, which you see here. I mean, they've worked on projects that are completely unique.
Right.
What was the VR one they did most recently?
Deracine.
That was one of them. You know, completely different type of game. They did Kuon back on the PS2. 3D Dot Game Hero, which looks nothing like any of this.
Yeah, they did the Armor Core games.
They did the Armor Core, Metal Wolf,
back in the
the
day.
big Metal Wolf that Devolver just deployed. That was only in Xbox exclusive.
What was the Xbox one? Was it Ninja Blade?
We did Ninja Blade. Yep, that was a 360 game, which was more like a. It's more like a Ninja Gaiden
Right.
style,
Right.
you know, action game. Yeah, they've done so many games. Kingsfield, I think, is also one there.
Okay.
But, and then they've got, you know, a big game coming up soon with George R. Martin,
Yeah. Yeah.
who did the
Song of Fire
Game
and
of
Ice
Thrones.
or Game of Thrones books. Yeah.
Yeah, Game of Thrones books, which will be Elden Ring. It's something to look forward to. And, you know, they're, as Brooks said, I mean, their abilities and their the quality level that they have is really, nobody's matched it in this past decade. There's been some that were close.
Yeah, they
But-
consistently, the games run well, they look good,
Yeah.
they play well, they're thoughtful, they're extremely deep, you can play with friends, you can
Yeah.
play alone, right? Everything that you would potentially want in a game is usually offered.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm really excited to see that now that we've done more of, we did Victorian with Bloodborne, and we did more fantasy.
Yeah,
with
maybe one day we'll
Souls.
see a Dark or a Bloodborne 2 or something like that. Who knows?
So I will look forward to seeing them crack the Norse world next. That's kind of the rumor
Yeah.
of the next game.
Yeah,
So
hopefully they'll do just as well. They've had some amazing games. So I think that ends today's show. We just wanted to cover like what we saw in the decade, and I think we're done milking all of that. So next week we'll actually have something that we'll play on the show.
We'll probably play something.
Yeah. But it's been fun, and we appreciate everybody for putting up with it. We enjoyed talking about a lot of these different games that made a big difference in in the 2010s. And hopefully we'll see a lot of big leaps and advancements in the 2020s as well.
Yeah, I think most of the developers shown today, I think almost all of them are still in existence, and I think they are actively working on something new.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and, we're getting a brand new generation of consoles right in the beginning of the decade.
right.
There's quite possibly the chance to have maybe one more round of consoles before the end of the decade. Who knows?
We might get a couple rounds this time.
Yeah, who knows?
So.
We'll see what they are. And they may not be in the same thing. There may not be hardware involved. It might be software-based or, streaming-based. Who knows?
5G.
We're waiting to see what that
5G really
does.
takes off, or
Yeah, a lot of things to look forward to. But we appreciate everybody for hanging out. Thank you so much for stopping in, checking these out. We will see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. here on Wild Tangent, the weekly Tangent show here on YouTube. And everybody have a great night. We'll talk to you then.
Take it easy.
Thanks, folks. See you.